Imagine a house where the walls still echo of a century-old nightmare, where dark energies linger and the spirits whisper of warnings. The Villisca Ax Murders remain one of history's most baffling cold cases, and I want to explore the dark, superstitious clues that were left behind. I decided to take a spiritual, symbolic look at the main piece of evidence that was left behind at the Villisca house back in 1912, and that is the axe. So I decided to look in Taschen's Book of Symbols to see what it has to say about the axe. And one thing it says is, perhaps it is the compilation of axe as human head and divine storm that confers its symbolic shadow. The axe is implicated in dismemberment and decapitation, in heinous crime and Gothic tale. Hooded executioners and the monstrous guillotine have axed the offender. The notorious Lizzie Borden allegedly took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. The axe is the instrument of berserk rampage in countless stories, from the fairy tale Bluebeard to modern crime novels. And that one phrase really brought this message home for me about the axe in the situation of the Villisca house. And that is that the axe is an instrument of berserk rampage. And that is indeed true in this case. Before we get into it, hello, welcome back to Meaningful Motivations with Tracy Erickson. And of course, if you are new to this channel, welcome. My name is Tracy Erickson, and on this channel, I talk a lot about the spiritual significance of symbols that you see in your day-to-day life, or even in your nighttime dreams. It is my belief that these objects that we experience in our life not only mean something to us here in the physical world, but they also mean something spiritually. So therefore, I find the spiritual significance in those symbols. So if you like that kind of content, be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications bell if you want to be notified every time I upload a new video. And while you're down there, don't forget to click the like button and hype this video if you have some hype points to spare. The Villisca Ax Murders occurred in the town of Villisca, Iowa, and there were 8 victims found, bludgeoned to death in their beds in the Moore residence. This happened on the evening of June 9th into the early morning of June 10th in the year 1912. And the case is still a cold case to this day, even though there were many suspects involved. The Moore family was a well-liked and affluent family within the community of Villisca. So it came as a huge shock to find out that the entire Moore family fell victim to this gruesome murder, as well as 2 little girls who were simply staying the night as overnight guests at the house. So the Moore family consisted of Josiah, the father, who was 43, Sarah, the mother, who was 39, and their 4 children, Herman, who was age 11, Mary Catherine, who was 10, Arthur, who was 7 years old, and little Paul, who was only 5 years old. And the 2 little girls who were also staying the night at the Moore's residence were the Stillinger sisters. So Ina, who was 8 years old, and Lena, who was 12 years old. And those 2 spent the night at the Moore residence that evening because they were attending a function at the church with the Moore family that didn't get over until later that night, around 9:30 p.m. On the morning of June 10th, 1912, the neighbor, Mary Peckham, was outside hanging her laundry on the line to dry. And at the time of doing this chore, she noticed that it seemed awfully quiet over there at the Moore house next door, because they should have been getting up and ready for school and taking care of the farm animals like they normally would. But the house seemed eerily quiet that morning. So Mary tried to go about her day, and after an hour passed or so, she decided to go over there once again and knock on the doors, because there was still this strange silence taking place over there. When she went to knock on the doors, there was no answer. And as she tried to look inside the windows, she noticed that each and every window was covered with cloth. And so there was no way for her to see inside. And so Mary decided to go ahead and let the chickens out and do what she could to kind of help them out. But she was so worried that she decided to call Ross Moore, who was Josiah Moore's brother. And so Ross Moore came over to see what was going on. When the brother Ross got there, he did a lot of the same that Mary did. He tried to look in windows. He tried to get their attention by knocking on the doors. But again, he was met with nothing but silence. And so, with no other choice, Ross took out his copy of the house key, and he went ahead and let himself in. So Ross walked through the front door, through the parlor, and into the downstairs guest bedroom, where he found Ina and Lena, the two Stillinger girls who were there as house guests, bludgeoned to death in the guest bedroom downstairs. After seeing that scene, Ross immediately went right back outside and told the neighbor, Mary, to go ahead and call Hank Horton, the local peace officer. And so Hank Horton was the first to arrive shortly after. After Hank Horton actually searched the entire house, he finally came to the conclusion that the entire Moore family, plus the two house guests, were all bludgeoned to death with an axe belonging to Josiah Moore, and the axe was left in the guest bedroom where the two Stillinger girls were found. The investigators believed that each and every victim except for Lena Stillinger were asleep at the time of their deaths. Lena, on the other hand, had some defensive wounds on her arm, and she was lying across the bed, rather than lying in the bed the normal way that she would be if she was still asleep at the time of the attack. The only real evidence that was left behind was the axe itself as the weapon used. But there was also one other piece of evidence that was very strange, and to me, it stood out as something very superstitious or even spiritual. And that is the fact that every single mirror in the entire Moore home was covered up with cloth or clothing of some kind, so as to cover up the reflections that the mirror would show. I decided to just start by asking Google, why would a killer cover a mirror? While some may be driven by superstitious fears, others are motivated by trauma, remorse, or simply avoiding their own monstrous reflection. And in my opinion, it could just be all of the above. And as far as superstitions and spiritual beliefs are concerned, there is a fear of trapping a soul. In many traditions, a mirror is seen as a gateway for spirits. Covering a mirror is intended to prevent the deceased soul from getting trapped in the reflection and becoming confused. A killer may carry this superstitious belief, fearing that the victim's spirit could use the mirrors to remain in the home and haunt them. Some folklore suggests that mirrors can serve as portals for evil entities. A killer might cover them to prevent demons or other malevolent spirits from entering the home. I have actually created a previous video about the spiritual symbolic meaning of mirrors. And basically, mirrors are a tool for self-reflection. Now, it depends on the person using that tool, of course, if it is aligned with good or evil. Now, in the case of the Villisca house and the mirrors being covered there, I believe that it was an act of avoidance. It was an act of not wanting to see their own reflection. So, spiritually speaking, the symbolic meaning of a mirror is that it's a tool for self-reflection. It is a tool to reflect on your own thoughts and actions in the world. But it's also a tool to reflect your own illusions back to you. The mirrors were all covered up. And I think it was a form of avoidance. An avoidance of what was actually taking place. And of the evil, dark energies that were behind it all. I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to click the like button. And thank you all so much for being here and spending your time with me. I love you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.